welcome to Hustleburg. This podcast is all about small business in St. Petersburg, Florida, how the business owners got started, how they built their business, and how they serve our community. I'm Brett Bittner, and I'm the host of Hustleburg, and I started Beyond Your Side Hustle, a marketing firm where we help budding entrepreneurs go beyond their side hustles and ditch their 9-to-5s. As the founder of a small business here in St. Pete myself, I love meeting and talking with fellow small business owners. Lucky for you, I also like to record those conversations for you to listen to. If you find anything of value in this episode, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, because there are probably more nuggets in other episodes, both past and upcoming. It would also be great if you rate and review the episode to let us know what you got out of the conversation. If you have a question about marketing, building your brand, or operating your small business that you'd like to have answered on a Q&A episode, please visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast question to submit it. Welcome back to another episode of Hustleburg. This is a Q&A episode number 16. This is going to be the first of 2 episodes that are specific to answering your questions about Instagram. Jumping right in, we have a question from Mark. What are some tips for showcasing my business right now on Instagram? Well, Mark, the most important thing to remember about Instagram is that it's an amazing opportunity to share with your audience stories that are interesting about what you do through a visual medium. By using photos and videos in your feed as well as in your stories, you share something valuable and connect with the Instagram audience. The demographics of this audience are going to skew younger than more established social media platforms like Facebook, who we talked about exclusively in episodes number 12 and 14. Obviously, Facebook saw the trend of the demographic skewing younger for Instagram and the value of a natively visual medium, and they purchased Instagram for $1 billion only 2 years after its founding. Now, they've kept Instagram a separate app and operate it separately from Facebook, despite adopting some similar features. Now, when it comes to how you should be using Instagram for your brand, sharing videos of something and how your business works, photos and videos of people, like celebrating your team and your community, or something else that makes up your brand are some of the ideas that I have immediately off the top of my head for how it is that you should be using the platform. Now, by sharing photos and videos of people important to your brand, you're going to share the spotlight of the post with them, building deeper engagement. Successful engagement on Instagram generally centers around the spread of positive emotions through images and video, so sharing happiness, humor, motivation, nostalgia, congratulations, or love visually, assuming that all of those things are part of your brand identity. Obviously, something like Hot Topic would not want to utilize those positive emotions that we noted, because that isn't part of their brand. Now, while Instagram offers multitudes of filters for your videos and for your images, you shouldn't overprocess or overuse those filters. As we discussed in episode 14, we're seeing a swing on social media across the board toward authenticity over produced and processed content. This carries over to the Instagram Stories product as well, which I'll talk more about in the next Q&A episode 18, in 2 weeks. Now, like Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn, the use of hashtags to collect similar content is prevalent on Instagram. And I certainly suggest you use the most important ones to your content and your brand to help others find your content that they may appreciate. Your commentary on posts, however, should not be hashtag this, hashtag that. Your words that accompany your posts in the feed are as valuable as the image itself. So don't make posts that become unreadable with the pound sign, for those of us who are old enough to remember when it was called that. Another more important use for hashtags, however, is for you to find content and accounts that are relevant to you and your business. Seeking out content that matters and adds value for you is an even more important way to utilize hashtags. In fact, I'd say it's even more important than even making posts on the platform. And you may be asking yourself why someone who preaches about content creation so much may say something like that. And that's because finding relevant content gives you an opportunity to engage with someone outside your existing audience so that you may add to your community online. You will see things that are interesting to you and that you can interact with. And we always have to remember that social media is a conversation. And if all you do is post, you are just yelling about what it is that you do instead of being able to listen and respond to what others have to say. Using hashtags to find conversations where you can add value pushes you to engage in the conversation aspect of social media, specifically on Instagram, rather than having it be a one-way medium. And the final tip in response to this question from Mark is to like as many posts that add value to you that show up in your feed. Now, if you'll recall, in episode 12 of Hustleburg, we talked about fixing your feed on the first of those 2 episodes. And by interacting with the content and people who add value to your experience, you're going to be able to tailor what it is that you see. So the reason for liking posts in your feed is twofold. First, you're going to tailor that feed to include accounts that offer you something of value. When they show up more frequently in your feed, you're going to have an opportunity to engage with the content that you like more often, and you can participate in meaningful discussions around it. Second, and actually might be as important, if not more, is that you will also tailor the Explore tab in the app, something that our more narcissistic users of Instagram may not have even discovered yet. And when you use the Explore tab in the app, you're going to bring even more relevant content to you to explore. Having this resource makes the hashtag searching to find new and relevant content less important, as the Explore tab better understands your ideal content. You're going to have all of those things automatically filtered and brought to you. So those are the tips that I have for anybody who is starting to use Instagram or is occasionally using Instagram to brand their business or is using Instagram in a way to build their brand. I'd like to take a moment to share something that we've been working on in the local business community to make sure that people here in St. Pete know who's open for business, and that's stpeteopenforbusiness.com. We have a listing of businesses who, regardless of whether they are deemed essential or non-essential, are actually open for business. They are talking about the things that they are doing creatively to adapt to the pandemic situation and the CDC guidelines that we have in place. And I've actually been able to have some Zoom video calls that we've created and put up on our YouTube channel that have allowed us to share their creativity as they stay open for business. So if you are a local business here in St. Pete or anywhere in Pinellas County, make sure you visit stpeteopenforbusiness.com/open to share with us everything that you're doing, and we'll get you on the listing as soon as possible, and we'll get you in the queue, hopefully, for one of these Zoom video chats that we've done. If you saw the bonus episode that came out Monday, we actually did a compilation of all 5 of those Zoom video chats that I did the previous week, and we're putting that audio out in bonus episodes as we go along, and as long as I have that content going, and as long as we're having to be creative about staying open for business, you're going to see that content in the feed in bonus episodes. So join us at stpeteopenforbusiness.com. The second question that we have on this Instagram-specific episode of our Q&A episodes comes from Christine. Is Instagram a lower priority than Facebook? She also offers that she's a photographer and wants to create a Facebook and an Instagram page for her work, but she feels like Instagram might showcase her work better and asks if she should start there. Well, as with many of the responses to questions posed here in the Q&A episodes, it depends, and I'm using that in very generalized advice terms. As we've discussed previously on the podcast, in 2020, the most important platform for you to have a presence is Facebook. Even for this listener who offers up some specifics, you need to have a presence on Facebook. Period. Full stop. Now, both platforms offer fairly robust business profiles in terms of making your brand visible and able to be contacted by your community. Both of them want you to post and eventually advertise with them. But as we discussed earlier, the users are different, and they want different things in the content that they engage with. Now, because I get to answer the specifics for this questioner's question, don't think that you should tune out for the rest of the answer if you aren't a photographer. As a photographer, I think that you should prioritize creation for a platform that best showcases what it is that you do and the stories that you tell with your business. Obviously, in this case, Instagram is a better place to create and share visual content like your photos and possibly videos. That doesn't mean to ignore Facebook entirely or not to have a business page there, just that you should focus on creating content for Instagram while also sharing, albeit less frequently, those same images, preferably in a different context for the different audience on Facebook. Now, you offer something that is uniquely suited to an almost solely visual medium. Utilize that advantage to tell stories not only of what you do, but about what you do. Don't just rely on the beauty of the photos that you're able to capture. Don't rely on the beauty of the photos that you're able to create. Focus on telling the stories of the people that you work with. You can create content about the behind-the-scenes people, whether we're talking about the background players in a wedding, like the catering staff, or the wedding planner, or the band. If you're in the real estate photography business, you can showcase the other people you work with in the process. You have a bunch of people to highlight, from the sellers of the home to the home inspectors, like we saw with Scott Surridge of SPS Home Inspections from episode 13 of Hustleburg, to realtors like Trent Smith, who you heard in episode 11. You aren't just telling the story of your usual suspects. You aren't just sharing the photos that you have been able to create and capturing special moments, but you're able to capture and tell the stories of everyone involved in making the event, whether we're talking about a wedding or a real estate sale, happen. And by featuring them, you'll build great relationships and you'll offer your community more than just stills from your shoots. And while I'm sure those are absolutely wonderful and beautiful, they're going to keep your content very one-dimensional. And as we've talked about, if you only talk about one thing, then that's all that people are going to see. We always have a 5-focus content creation plan. The main thing that you do, which should be about 40% of the content that you create, 2 things that are related to the thing that you do, and that should be another 25 to 30% of the content that you create, and 2 things that are personalized to you that make it so that your brand is not robotic, that it is real, that it is operated and run by a real person. Those final 2 things should make up the remainder. And so we always need to make sure that we are not doing something one-dimensional. And when we focus on sharing some of the behind-the-scenes people, when it comes to your specific question, and you didn't specify whether it was wedding or what type of photography, so I wanted to give a couple options that were there. You have the ability to then create stories that are beyond what your normal one-dimensional photography page will have in Instagram. And now for the final question that we're going to answer in this Q&A episode, specifically focused on Instagram, comes from Kelly. What sort of content best highlights a business on Instagram? Well, we just outlined a little bit of it in the previous answer, but it's the same kind of engaging content that adds value to others on all social media platforms. Seriously though, your Instagram needs to be a mix of those 5 main topics. The main thing you do, 2 things that are related to that main thing, and 2 things that show the world that you're a real person and not a robot. Now that's the answer, and the same thing that I say and share about any social media platform. Now, when it comes to specifics about Instagram, the content you should create to highlight your brand, regardless of whether we're talking about the main feed or Instagram stories, are the visual, interesting aspects about it. And unless you're in complete darkness 100% of the time, this content is very easy to come by. You may not think about it, you may not see it every day, but it is going to come from what you see around you. If you were to go sit at your desk or counter, stand someplace that you frequent in your business, or look at the things or services you sell, you could easily create 100 photos and videos right now for Instagram. In fact, I'm sure that if I were able to walk in, knowing absolutely nothing about what you do, I would be able to create 100 photos and videos just by following you around for about 10 minutes. Believe it or not, something that seems so mundane to you that you use every day will be found fascinating by someone else. And I'm going to share with you a story about when I worked in the movie theater industry. It never failed that something I took for granted was the most requested and fascinating part of my job to other people when I had the ability to show them around. I saw it as the dimly lit upstairs area that was upstairs and behind the auditorium. It housed offices and stock rooms, But anybody that went behind the scenes got to see something completely different and completely fascinating from what I did as I walked by day after day. And that's the projection booth and the projectors. They saw the 35mm projectors, they saw the platter system that film ran on, and they got to see what movies looked like when they came in, when they were delivered, and what they looked like while they were playing if they were able to be up there during operating hours. Now that glimpse at something that I didn't give a second thought to was overwhelmingly the most interesting part of my job to other people. Also, the people that you encounter at work, whether your team or your customers, are pretty fascinating themselves. They all have a story that you can tell or that they can tell, either with an image and some commentary, or they can tell the stories themselves in a video. Incorporating your community in the creation of your content is going to make it feel like a vibrant and engaging community and fostering strong relationships together. You have an opportunity here. You can share successes, and I do want you to share your achievements. Share the achievements of your team and share the achievements of your customers, because people want to cheer on winners, and when you're able to share your wins, they will be cheering you and your community on. So give the people a reason to cheer. Finally, it isn't about broadcasting what you want out there to your followers. You should be giving far more in terms of engagement to them with their posts and their stories. You should use their posts and stories to learn about them. This is a great opportunity that's completely free. It is a free focus group for you to learn about them. You're going to be able to answer the questions that they have. You're going to be able to offer advice to them in the areas where you have an expertise, and you're going to be able to share that expertise without an agenda. And you're going to want to share it that way without an agenda, without any expectation of anything in return, and without driving directly to your business. That is, unless they're asking you directly about it. That engagement, which you're going to find in the comments and you're going to find in other people's posts, is going to be what brings people to you. If you are just broadcasting the things that you want out there, the latest special, the new thing that's happening at work, then you're not going to be able to properly engage if you're solely promoting yourself and solely promoting your brand. So you're going to want to go beyond that scope, and you're going to want to engage with the people who are part of the community or are about to be a part of the community. And you're certainly going to want to utilize that tailored Explore tab that we talked about earlier. Hey, you did it! You've just listened to Hustleburg. To thank you for listening, we have a free guide to help you get started marketing your business online, aptly named our Getting Started Guide, available at beyondyoursidehustle.com/gettheguide. See how to begin with the first 3 things you should be doing for your business. Speaking of businesses, if you're a small business owner in St. Pete and you'd like to be a guest on an episode of the podcast, please let us know at beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcastguest. If you got something of value from this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app. This is something small that you can do to help us shine the spotlight on all the great businesses St. Pete has to offer. The music in this episode is Defining Your Dreams by my friend Rhymer Educator. You can listen to his latest single, The Last One, on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to great music. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to sharing with you how we do business in the Burg.